And here we go. We're back. And
So on today's topic,
yeah, right. Today's topic. All right. So, all right, we're here. Where do I start? Okay, so let me first talk about where we're going here. So the problem
okay.
that I'm trying to solve with the first agent is to have this sort of foundational agent that allows us to use and iterate as we develop all of our other agents. So one of the greatest challenges I've noticed is uh, getting your user prompt or your request and passing it to your tool and ensuring that a very complex request with a lot of steps, right, can be
Mhm.
processed throughout your multi-agent system. So as of now, we have these sort of like OpenAI, the Assistant API, and the Bedrock, API situation, right? For which we can execute tools based upon intent pretty easily, right? But where the problem sort of presents itself is where you have an intent such as, I want to order pizza. Okay, well, I want a pizza that's pepperoni from Pizza Hut. If they don't have, pepperoni there, then get cheese. Well, if they don't have cheese there, then go to Domino's. If they don't have that there, go to Papa John's, right? But
And
yeah,
that right
yeah,
now you did it once and saving this intent for next
yeah,
time you say I want pizza.
yeah, and that's there. So there are a couple different concepts. We'll talk about saving intent. I broke it down into various different layers as well.
Nice,
So
nice.
yeah, and we'll talk about all that. But in a sense, that's essentially what we're doing here. And can you see? Let me actually present now my
Okay, okay.
screen.
I know I don't see. I just see you. I'm taking notes kind of for myself.
Yeah, great,
Just if you see
perfect.
me looking at this screen, I'm on both.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, also, we should say our names, right? I'm Miguel Tillis, and this is Santino
Richard Santine.
Richard. Yep. All right.
It's fine.
And let's get started, okay? So here we go. So with regard to this complex system, right? When we talk about having this complex intent, specifically, let's bring it back a notch. What do we mean about intent? It's just like when you talk to someone, right? You talk about, well, I intend to do X, Y, and Z. Say, if I'm hungry, I intend to eat, right? Essentially,
Yeah.
right? So we're talking about complex intent, just like I mentioned with the pizza example. Well, first thing that I realized we should do is break up the intent, right? What do I mean by that?
That's good.
Right?
There's
So
like subtle intent.
yeah, so that's the first layer, which is represented by an agent. I call this the static intent agent, which is the first step. What it does is it, like I said, breaks up the intent. We'll take a look at the code in a second, but what we'll do is just run it, and I can show you the result really quickly, okay? I
Sure.
have a module called abstractions, which takes everything and sort of compiles it down and whittles it down to just a few lines here, right, as you can
Okay.
see. And so if we run this, bam, let's take a look at the result. I'll expand this a little bit. So it's going through it. All right,
User
cool.
ID. Okay. Create an email about event with teachers.
Yeah,
Design the email nicely. Schedule the email for Saturday. Show email reports. And that to
yep,
me is like a roadmap right there.
exactly. Yeah. So what I put in the description, right, for the agent is to ensure that the order is precise, right? It has to maintain the order for one. And number two, it has to return the data structure back to the program. And I'll demonstrate what I mean by that. So when I say the data, like we can tell this is obviously a list, right?
Yeah.
So you have to hard code that within the tool for which this agent is responsible for. And I'll show you what that looks like. But first, let's
Okay.
talk
Okay.
about the original prompt, right? As you can see here, everything showed up pretty accurately, right? So
Okay.
this is
I see.
accurate about maybe 98% of the time. So it's pretty good. You
So you're
will
saying instead
see,
of that, we would tell GPT to create this roadmap as a prompt. Uh
theoretically, no. Well, this represents the user prompt. So let me actually rename this. Does that make sense?
but it's
So
gonna be from voice, right? And
yes, yeah,
they're gonna capture certain words, right? After the intent was said, they capture the words,
mhm,
and then from there create a roadmap, right? Which
yeah,
that looks like a roadmap.
exactly, the roadmap. So you mentioned a funny thing. It's sort of like a black box with regard to how the agent does officially do the intent. For which it's kind of funny, right? Because it's an LLM, all it's really doing is sort of guessing the next best word.
Yeah,
So, and that brings us to another thing, which is like the explainability, but we'll talk about that shortly. You can ask me about that afterward. I haven't sort of, it's one of the layers of the agent that's coming soon.
yeah,
But before we get into the weeds of that, let's continue to talk about this. Let's take a look at the code, okay, really
sure.
quickly.
Yep.
Um, so this, it's somewhat complex, not bad, but somewhat complex. So there are a couple of things, obviously OpenAI key, blah, blah, blah. Uh,
A lot of
but let me
variables
see.
there.
Yeah, a lot of variables. It will get less complex shortly. But as for now, there are a couple of different things that happen here. Let me jog my memory. So you have the capability to update an agent on the run or create an agent, you know, as you run.
That's good.
Um, so
Instantialize an agent and
yeah,
update an
exactly,
agent.
exactly. So it's pretty simple. But the meat of this really is not so much the agent, the intent module itself. Let's take a look at the functions. That's kind of where we want to be. Now you've seen what the sort of the agent looks like. The other component are the functions which are passed in as you initialize the class, right? So if we go back here, so oops, let me go back here and close the things that I don't need. So keep in mind line number 2, right? You see that?
Yeah.
So we're
Functions, all
passing
the
in,
functions inside the
yeah.
function.
So theoretically, you could overwrite them if you wanted to, right? So you could say like this,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is a beautiful thing. So I think it's important to have the functions external to,
To take
if you want to, right?
yeah, that way you can pass values.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, as we move along,
I
let me
see what
just,
you mean. I see what you mean as one the static intent agent having the base rule,
yeah,
and then depending on what it's going to work with, then it passes that information.
right. So
But
yeah,
they all have the base agent
exactly.
attributes.
And the reason why, again, that's important, not just for a single agent, but for multiple agents. So each one
Modular.
will have to determine intent for their own use cases.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and let's
And you
see
just
what
have to
else.
give it better instructions depending on what agent it is. I
Yeah,
would imagine
yes.
the email agent, you would give it more a strict way to write it, depending on what the intent is. Is it to your
Mhm.
cousin or is it to your boss?
Exactly, exactly. And that's highly
Yeah.
configurable within the directions that we
Yeah,
submit
that
an
sounds
agent
good. It
there.
makes it modular to do it that
Yeah,
way. Having a static agent and then adding to that one
yeah,
with different attributes that we can give it.
yeah, yeah. So,
Oh, I see their intent.
yep. So, bam, gather intent. It's pretty straightforward. Let's see. So, intent, so accepts an array. So, and then all you really have to do is describe what you want your sort of parameter to be to your function method, if that makes sense. So here, the description and array of requests from the prompt provided in order as the user requested, okay? And then
Yeah.
that is passed here and it's returned. All right. Now let's go to the directions. Let's take a look at that. That is in the config directory. So do only the following in the order described. Get the user's prompt, break the prompt up in terms of actions, or that's a little bit of a typo, actions intent requested, but you know what I mean, right? Put each
Yeah.
requested action intent in an array and submit the actions array to the agent. And there you go. That's the first layer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And we can keep adding to this one to keep it more
exactly.
secure as the first layer, because I imagine a lot of security is going to go on this one.
Yeah, which is
Uh,
an additional layer. If you give me a moment, I'll get my entire, I have like so many different layers. Let me share them with you really quickly, okay?
yeah, sure.
I don't think we'll
Now,
have time to
now
go
with
through.
that, yeah, yeah, and we don't have maybe I'm fine. I have enough time, but
Okay. Well, I only want to spend like an hour, but I'm gonna
okay.
go. It's on my whiteboard. Let me go snap a picture, come back,
All right.
and I'll share a few.
All right.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right, I'm back. I didn't remember all of them because I'll be like just flowing, man. I'll be up in the middle of the night pissing my girlfriend
There's
off, getting
so
up
many
and
agents, right?
yeah,
Oh
just
no,
writing
that's
down
not
my
good.
ideas.
That's
But
good. That's good.
I'm like, well, my bad. I guess I woke her up. I have to do what I have to do. But anyways, so we talked about the intent agent. We have the concept of guardrails as well. Suppose I don't need. Let me see. 1 second. Let me write something down. I had an idea. Let's see. Hmm. Let me take it back a notch. I'll have to rewatch the video of
It was
this.
the Jarvis one. That
It was
one is really cool.
you said something about what was it you said a second ago? I'll have to go back and rewatch the video. So rewatch, get what Richard said.
Oh, the gather is it the gather intent?
Nah, it was something. I lost my idea. See, that's why I have to write it down. I
Oh, the
have so
security. I
many.
was talking about security because we were in the other in ChatGPT directions.text.
Yeah,
And we were talking about like you could add that's gonna be for the static intent agent, right? The initial direction.
yeah, yeah.
And in that one it's gonna be the good for security. Maybe we might have to break it down a little bit more to give specific security quite like direction
Right, exactly. Yeah.
guardrails. Um
S- So, yeah, man. Let me see. Let me share this with you.
yeah,
Yeah, I wrote that down. Thanks. I think that's what it was.
yeah.
So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let me see here. Stop presenting. And let's go over these real quick. So intent, we already talked about. Oh yeah, the guardrails, which could sort of be a couple of things, right?
Yeah.
So AWS Bedrock and AWS, they have this concept of guardrails for which I really like the idea. And we're talking about appropriateness. We're talking about going outside the bounds of what the user asks and what your directions are.
Mhm.
That's not really per se security, but I think maybe there could be some aspect of security there. There are a whole different host of
I have seen a
security.
lot of that they like no harm. You will
Well,
not do anything about like respond to anything related
right.
to harm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
think that
Right.
is that like the guardrail you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No harm,
Yeah,
nothing
yeah,
inappropriate, you know.
uh,
Let's see. Also, if we're
yeah.
talking about
Oh,
security, is
inappropriate. I don't know. Inappropriate. That depends
well,
on who.
I mean, we might want to keep that one in there if we want to have some fun. Shoot,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No harm, I think, is
right?
very important, right? And
Yeah,
maybe some other ones, but yeah. But I
yeah,
see the one what you're saying about guardrails, right?
yeah,
And maybe we should put those guardrails inside of the static intent agent, right?
yeah. That's
For
that.
all
That's
the
my
agents to
intention.
have it, right?
Yeah,
Exactly, right?
and have like all these layers, right? We're talking about RAG as well. A concept of making it easy to use RAG among each of the agents. So
Yeah.
I don't
It's better if you
necessarily,
put it in static.
yeah, at least for the short-term memory, I think there should be a global short-term memory and a local short-term memory for each agent.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because if you're having like the supervisor sort of model of multi-agent architecture, um, your supervisor is going to have to somehow get the context of what's going on, right? And I think
Yeah.
it would be useful to do that because the supervisor may need his own memory, and then each agent, depending on their use cases, you know, could possibly need. And I feel like it would be awesome to use that in the same way to have sort of like an agent pipeline to pass memory from one agent to another to sort of trade context, if that makes sense. So
I think
that's
that
hard.
it's not about trade context, but it's more about this is the context, and then it have to search for the memory,
Right.
right? And
Yeah,
use
sort
it.
of. Yeah. I think we're sort of on the same page. But I was thinking something
Yeah.
sort of along the lines of that. But one
Yeah.
thing at a time, right? Um, First thing is the intent and getting that down. I think that's a
Rag.
good one.
And rag
Yeah.
is really good.
Oh yeah, RAG,
Because
of course.
for each of them to have context of all of it is good. But one thing that I was talking about with Brian was local first,
Mhm.
right? So in part you might have some memories stored in your local and that are not in the servers.
Right.
Um
Which
and
is funny.
you
Yeah.
can choose to not have that, use it. But then, if you can have use your own LLM, in like a local one with your data, that would be good too.
Right. That's funny that you mentioned that, because today I was thinking about, well, your RAG doesn't have to be in the cloud. I mean, as of
Yeah.
now, I think it will be, because that's just sort of the way things are. Like, even if you have something on disk, it's going to send it out. Like, it's going to create embeddings, right? And it's going to send it to OpenAI or AWS. That's just how it is right
Yeah.
now. Unless we have our own system we want to use, but we don't right now. So in the meantime, this is what we're going to do. But what we can do is
Yeah.
keep the immediate document on disk, right? I think that's probably a way to sort of simulate that, maybe. Um, yeah, keep the immediate documents on disk and just have like a sync, right?
Yeah.
A sync,
A way
a
to sync.
periodic sync, yeah. Or based
Yeah.
upon some integrity check or something. But we don't have to worry
Whatever
about
they
all the
want.
details
If
right
they
now.
don't want to sync it, they
Yeah,
don't sync it, you know.
yeah, but sort of like, Dropbox, but just for your RAG documents or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Your memories, your events, right?
yeah,
And then
exactly.
you choose to make them public, private, share them, type of things with other people, so they increase their knowledge too, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly. Yeah, man, this
Like,
is
for
gonna be
example,
amazing.
check this out. This is how I was thinking stores would do it. You would go to a store and then you would just scan a QR code and get their knowledge base, and it'll now your AI has the context of that store.
Yeah.
And you just tell it, I want to get a lawnmower. Where is it?
Hmm.
And then it'll direct you to where you have to go.
Right. Right.
Stuff like that.
Well, getting context. Well, eventually you guys want to support memories and stuff. Like, I think that's an easy sort of
Oops.
thing to implement now that I think about it. Because theoretically, you can Google someone and find a lot about them, enough to know
Yeah.
generally about who they are, right? So I
Yeah.
think if we have the correct mechanism to get that data, we can fulfill the context within the agent to make it somewhat like someone, right? But that would require like a lot of multimodal stuff, in my opinion, because if
Yeah.
you have, like, not everything is going to be just text, right? Keep that in mind. You're going to have audio, you're going to have video. So if you have something powerful enough to analyze the video, transcribe that, and then analyze it. I
Yeah.
think that would
That's
be
the
cool,
best way.
cool thing to do, yeah, as well. Or maybe
Yeah.
not just even transcribe, just generally, just, hey AI, what is happening in this video? You know, right?
Yeah. I think the better way is to do exactly what they're saying,
Mhm.
and then also to describe, another one, do it,
Right.
describe the scenery, what's going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. I think
So
that's
so that
powerful
it can
stuff.
focus in one way. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
But
you
it's
can put
like,
it then together.
yeah. Oh yeah. I think, one step at a time. I think that's
Oh
like
shit. Oh
what?
shit, dude.